Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
They're here.
Come to Freddy.
I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired.
We'll tear your soul apart. You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week. 30 years in the making.
The 30-something movie podcast. Now, I will start by saying that originally, our Little Monsters episode, this is episode 264, Little Monsters, by the way. Originally, Little Monsters was supposed to be a part of our kids month, our kids movie month in September, but as with Jurassic Park, life found a way to mess everything up. And so we were not able to record that one in September. So it's still, it's monsters, it's Little Monsters. So we're in October now. Hence, you get the scary, spooky October intro to the podcast. So, and I always enjoy recording a good evil laugh whenever I can. So, you're all welcome, by the way. Speaking of welcome, and the not so evil laugh you may hear in the background, I've got Bo, the Love Fest, or should I call you Fright Fest for the month of October?
I think so. Okay. I think that would work. Although is that trademarked? I wonder.
Bo, the frightfully lovely fest.
Whoa.
There you go. Bo, how you doing?
I'm well, John. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. It's October. It's like possibly the greatest month of the year.
Wow, I did not know you felt that way about the month of October.
I think I do. Being from Texas, it used to be like all the summer months because
sure, I
always appreciate that. But I don't know. As I've gotten a little bit older, I love Halloween. Halloween, probably one of my favorite holidays of the year. Mostly because I just like to wear costumes, and I just like all the scary stuff. Like I'm enjoying the music. As soon as backtrack. Let me take a step back for just a moment. The year was 2019, and it became October. Well, it turned fall a little bit. The first day, my lovely wife, the first day it starts to turn cold, she breaks out all the pumpkin spice candles, all of the mulled spice candles. Those are more sure. Christmas time, but she brings out all the fall stuff. Like she's just.
So you are a fan of the pumpkin smell?
It depends. Okay. It needs to be the right pumpkin smell.
Sure.
We're not coffee people, so we don't do the pumpkin spice lattes. We don't do any of that stuff.
Pumpkin shake from Culver's.
I have not.
I highly recommend that.
Okay. All right. I
experienced it for the first time myself yesterday.
Okay. I'm a little picky on my pumpkin flavors. Like I'm okay with certain pumpkin candles.
Sure.
I'm absolutely fine with pumpkin pie. We had some friends coming over a few days ago, and we went to buy an apple pie at Costco. Turns out they didn't have any, but they had a $6 pumpkin pie that was the size of a large pizza. God bless America. That's all I have to say.
Yes. Oh yeah, those pies there. My God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do sometimes wonder if they're just a little excessive. Like unless you're going to a party, what are you doing with that pie?
Right.
I had my aunt.
Unless you've bought stock in childhood obesity, then it's a little excessive.
My aunt brought 2 of those to a Christmas dinner once. I was like, well, thanks, but how many people did you think were here?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was when I walked out of the store. I think I walked out. I don't know if I had anything else with me, but I had the pumpkin pie. I might have had something else. And they always check your receipt as you walk out of the store. Mm-hmm. So I'm walking out of the store and the person says, now don't eat that all at one time. And I almost looked at the person and be like, hey, you know what? You don't tell me what to do.
Challenge accepted.
I'm trying to live my best life here. And if my best life is that I'm going to take this pumpkin pie home and destroy it, then you don't know me.
I'll do what I want.
You ain't been where I've been. But this is not the pie podcast. It might start to sound like the pie podcast, but it is October, and October is horror month. It is simultaneously one of my favorite months and one of Pat's least favorite months. Hence the reason Pat's probably running late tonight is because he knows this is the start of our October podcasts. But so it is Little Monsters. We did have to push this one back just a little bit, but we're here now. We're ready to go. Little Monsters, all about that stuff. So before we get started, very, very quickly, we spoil the movies we talk about. So just be aware. This is your spoiler alert right here for the rest of the episode. We may spoil some other movies that we have not planned to talk about, but we speak freely here. So leave us an iTunes review if you haven't yet. iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, but iTunes is most helpful because of all the algorithms and such. And then visit our website if you have not done that yet, 30podcast.com. That's got all the different ways that you can interact with the show. We'd love to hear from you. We've got a voicemail line that you can call into there. You don't even have to talk about movies. If you want to just call in and say hi, then that's fine. You can totally do that. We're not going to stop you. There's no restrictions on that. But we'd love to hear what you know about these movies, what you feel about these movies. If you've got something you want to tell us, like, hey, there's a movie from 1989. It's a horror movie. You guys don't even have it on your list. You need to check out this movie. Now, we may not end up recording an episode about it on the podcast, but you bet your sweet bippy I'm going to watch it. I don't even know what that means, but I just said it.
I was going to ask because I've never known what it means either.
Yeah, don't Urban Dictionary it because I don't know what it is.
Or do and tell us.
Or do and tell us. And maybe you can call the voicemail line in and say, if you're trying to be a family-friendly show, you may not want to say you bet your sweet bippy.
Right.
But I feel like I looked it up one time and it's pretty safe.
You would look that up. I can honestly say I never have.
I would. I'm inquiring minds,
I love that you looked that up. That's cool.
I'm the one that has the child that does the Vulcan salute in class, so.
That is true.
Well, in terms of news, there's a couple few things going on around about these parts. New teaser for Stranger Things 4 just came out either yesterday or today. It's looking, it's like 20 seconds long, 30 seconds long, so you don't get any idea. But yeah, if you want to get people hyped for the next season of Stranger Things, then that works for me.
Yeah.
Basically, you see the Stranger Things logo, you see a giant 4, and then everything kind of it turns from red into it's kind of getting covered by those like creepy upside down vines and everything else, and then it kind of all fades away at some point, and then it says we're not in Hawkins anymore. So did you finish season 3?
There's part of me that needs to go back and double check, but I believe I did, yes.
Okay. All right. I don't want to say anything just in case you didn't, but.
No, go ahead. I'm not worried.
Okay. Well, by the end, okay, so this is for everybody. If you haven't seen Stranger Things season 3, skip ahead a minute or two.
Right.
By the end of that, you end up in the final scene is in a prison. It seems to be in Russia.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've got in one cage, you have kind of it's either a Demogorgon or a Demo Dog or whatever it is.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm a little confused to which is which, but yes.
Right. And then they walk by a door and it's either, I don't think it's labeled, but I think somebody says something about the American.
Yeah.
Behind that door. So my assumption is that we're going to branch out beyond Hawkins and we're going to have some other stuff going on. I would imagine that we're still going to have Hawkins be a focal point of the story, but
sure,
I don't think it's going to be completely taking place all in Hawkins, Indiana this time. So, cool. Yeah. So I am looking forward to that. Do you think you know who the American is?
It's funny you're saying that because I thought I did at the time, but it's not coming to me now.
Okay.
I remember thinking, oh, I bet it's, but
I think it's either Hopper. So I think it's either Jim Hopper, or they're going to do a complete fan favorite shocker here, and it's going to be Barb from season 1.
That's who I thought it was. Thank you.
Okay.
Because it just seems like that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly who I thought it was. Thank you.
Yep.
I couldn't come up with the name, but yes, I was like, oh, it's the missing girl.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be the missing girl.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Yep. Although I try to remember, and I think maybe, and I may be remembering this wrong, because we watched season 1 with John. He had never seen it, so he wanted to watch it. And so we watched season 1 with him. And I feel like there was a time where I was going, I bet maybe Barb comes back in it. And then I almost feel like we see Barb's corpse in season 1.
Yeah, I feel like we did.
I was like, oh, never mind.
But are we sure that that's really...
Maybe not.
It is the Upside Down.
That's true. Strange things are afoot in the Upside Down.
We're figuring that whoever they have was shot put it out the other side, right? I mean, is that the theory?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
could be anything.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's not Will, because how he's connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping it's not like some weird duplicate Echo, quote unquote, kind of Star Trek-y kind of thing.
Making copies.
Right. Like, I don't want it to be that.
Mm-hmm. That would be a fun callback to Multiplicity if they decided to do that for Stranger Things 4.
There you go.
There's a... Yeah.
I just feel like that's been done in sci-fi so much with the... Oh, the echo of your persona was left in the other universe, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't want that to be it. I want it to be somebody who was lost in there and was ejected out the backside.
Yeah. Whoa, now.
Or, the other thought I had, he wasn't killed in the Upside Down, was he? Sean Astin's character.
No, he was killed in the...
He was IRL.
Yeah. He was killed by the demo dogs.
Yeah, never mind. I was thinking it could be him, but no. He would have to be in the Upside Down when it happened for that to make sense.
Okay. I'm still on the Multiplicity thing. So that's Stranger Things 4. And then there was a new trailer. Now, you said you had not seen this one yet.
No.
The new trailer for Birds of Prey?
No.
Okay. Or, if we want to do the full title, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
You know what a Harlequin is? A Harlequin's role is to serve. It's nothing without a master. No one gives two who we are beyond that. The Joker and I broke up. I wanted a fresh start. But it turns out I wasn't the only dame in Gotham looking for emancipation.
Spectacular news! Miss Quinn, she belongs to me.
Who are you guys?
Here's the deal, Quinn. You need me!
He's after all of us now. None of us are walking out of here unless we work together.
With you. You gotta be kidding me.
Isn't this fun? It's just like a sleepover. We should order pizza. Big Cosmos. Harley, focus. Okay. I'm the one they should be scared of. Not you. Not Mr. J. Because I'm Harley freaking Quinn.
Who's having a good time?
Get ready, ladies. Psycho chick. I never call a woman a chick. I like said broad, lady, woman, and on occasion. What are you talking about? That for me, will you?
I'm going to run with the assumption that DC is kind of going to start to treat Harley Quinn kind of like their Deadpool.
Oh, okay. Have some fun.
That's kind of the sense I'm getting from this movie, like the vibe that her character is giving off. And she would be a good character to do that with. So, like, it's going to be a fun, zany, quirky movie.
Mm-hmm.
So why not?
Sure.
And I don't know that she's going to be in Suicide Squad 2. I think I mentioned that to you earlier before we started recording. I'm not sure she's going to be in that. So, use her in this movie.
And I'll admit, I have not read much about Suicide Squad 2 except to know that it exists.
Right. And James Gunn's directing it. And
right. I know very... just that one article I read.
Mm-hmm. I
was like, all right, cool.
Okay. But it looks like fun. She's in the trailer, and I know you haven't seen it yet, but in the trailer, she kind of mentions that she broke up with Mr. J, and she's emancipating herself from being the Joker's girlfriend and trying to strike out on her own. And I'm a little. Now, see, I'm going to assume that I know the Batman characters better than you do.
Yes, you can assume that.
Okay. So Ewan McGregor, and Ewan McGregor I'm confident enough to say this. He's a good looking man.
Yeah, I think I can go with you on that one.
Okay. All right. He's playing a character called Black Mask, who in the comics wears a black mask.
Yeah.
In the movie, and I'm assuming because he's a handsome man, he's not wearing a mask.
That's a problem.
That's kind of weird. Like, why would your name be Black? And I get it. It's a trailer. We only see like a few really quick clips of him real fast. But, he's kind of in the comics several times. He would be dressed in kind of sometimes like a white suit. And he was wearing a white suit in a few of the scenes that I saw in the trailer. But Black Mask always had a black mask on. So, I mean, I get the whole like mob boss gangster kind of thing. But I'm like, then I need to see why Black Mask if you're not going to put a mask on him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's all I know about that one. So we'll leave that one. If anybody else has got any thoughts on the Birds of Prey movie, it looks like fun. So it's one, depending, I don't know if I'm going to go see it in the theater, but it'll definitely be one that I'll watch at some point. Because, I enjoyed, of the parts I did enjoy about Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn's character was one of the things I enjoyed about Suicide Squad. Other than that, not as much. And I'm always a fan of Ewan McGregor, so I will watch whatever he's in. Including, have we talked about this yet? And then we can get onto our movie, the Obi-Wan TV series.
Yeah.
Oh, hello there. Yes. Okay. That I am very excited about this.
Yeah, that will be very cool.
I wanted the Obi-Wan movie for many, like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I wanted the Obi-Wan movie. And then when I heard it's not going to happen, I'm like, oh, I think that he would be so good in it if you just give him an opportunity to make a movie that falls in between episodes 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really good because
that'd be awesome.
His Obi-Wan Kenobi / Alec Guinness that he played in Revenge of the Sith was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
His character was obviously a little wooden in episode 1 and could have cleaned up some stuff in episode 2, but I don't think that I blame that on him. I think I blame that a little bit on George Lucas's directing.
I think the writing was...
And the writing, right.
Especially in 1.
I get the feeling we're bringing on another useless life form. Oh, yeah, no kidding. You needed the Force to figure that out there, did you? You're going to be the death of me, Anakin. Oh, good grief.
Yeah, God. Some of it's so bad I forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when you and I was telling the kids about this the other day. Do you remember when you and I would go in the special editions when no one else was in the theater? We'd sit in the back and we'd kind of do our own like Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun because it's movies we love.
Oh, yeah.
But there is so much about them to just tear into.
Mm-hmm. Shall we talk a Little Monsters?
Sure.
Let's talk Little Monsters. All right. So the movie Little Monsters is our movie this time around. It came out on the 25th of August in 1989, rated a P and a G. It was 1 hour and 40 minutes, directed by Richard Greenberg, who died, not because of this movie, but in 2018. I'm trying to... Pat's not here yet, and I don't know if he'll be able to get here in time for this one, so I'm just going to try to insert some stuff I think Pat might say.
There you go.
He did, I don't know that he directed a whole lot of other movies, maybe because of this movie, but he did visual effects on The Devil's Advocate, Last Action Hero, and Predator. Producer for this one, John Davis, Andrew Licht, and Jeffrey A. Muller. Davis did Predator and The Firm. Licht did The Cable Guy and Idle Hands. That's a fun Halloween movie if you want to watch one. And then Muller did Waterworld and The Cable Guy. Writers for this one were Terry Rossio and Ted Elliott. Rossio did Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek. Elliott did Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek, so they pretty clearly worked together.
Yeah.
Cinematography was Dick Bush, who died in 1997. Did cinematography for Victor, Victoria, and Pink Panther movies. Did you say something?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Just checking. Music was done by David Newman, who also did Heathers, the Bill and Ted movies, and The Sandlot. You are killing me, Smalls.
Newman.
What is also killing me is the box office for this movie. The budget for this movie was a cool $7 million. The box office for this movie was a completely frigid $793,775.
Not that surprising, though, really. I just don't see it doing that well in the theaters. I'm not saying it's a bad movie or anything. I loved it as a kid.
No, I got you.
And I didn't see it in the theater, and I should have. The age was right. Like, the fact that I didn't see it in the theater.
I don't know that clearly nobody saw this in the theater.
I was just gonna say, I don't think anyone
I think there's a reason why. I think when I was reading up some of the trivia on this movie is that it was not. I think it was released in like less than 200 theaters.
Oh.
So that would be why you never saw it.
Well, that explains that a little better.
Yeah. I that number may be wrong, but whatever it was ridiculously low. Like that's one of the reasons people said that, well, this movie didn't do well in the theater because nobody saw it. Like
that makes more sense.
It didn't get released barely anywhere. So
yeah, I remember coming across it on, like HBO or something. Like it was,
Oh yeah, it was like a regular staple of the. Well, we need a movie to fill a spot in our lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Little Monsters. There you go. We got an hour and 47 minutes.
We saw it a ton growing up.
Oh yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on
I don't remember where, but we did record it off of TV, so we had it on a VHS tape, and we would watch that over again. Let's see. Rotten Tomatoes critics didn't even bother to do one for this one. Rotten Tomatoes audience gives it a 62%. IMDb gives it a 61%. Letterboxd gives it a 54%, and CinemaScore did not have a score for this one. Starring Fred Macho Man Savage. He was Brian Stevenson, and he was in The Wonder Years and The Princess Bride. Howie Mandel was Maurice. He was in Muppet Babies and Bobby's World. Daniel Stern was Glenn Stevenson. He was in Home Alone, City Slickers, and he was the narrator for The Wonder Years. Margaret Whitten, who died in 2016, played Holly Stevenson. She was in Major League and The Secret of My Success. Richard is it Dukamoon? I always say that wrong. Is it Dukamoon or Duke? Yeah. I'm going to go with Dukamoon.
I don't know. It's all about which syllable gets the accent.
Right. Tutankhamun.
Exactly right.
There. He's Egyptian, is what he was. Just a very pale Egyptian. He died in 2015. He played Snick. He was in The Burbs and Groundhog Day. Frank Whaley played Boy. He was in Pulp Fiction and The Doors. Ben Savage played Eric. He was in Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World. William Murray Weiss was Todd. He was in Tune In Tomorrow. Devin Rattray played Ronnie Coleman. He was in Home Alone and The Tick TV series. Amber Barretto played Kirsten. She was in a TV series called Hang Time. Here is the trailer, and we'll be back in just a second.
Ever wonder why kids get blamed for everything just because their parents can't explain it?
I didn't do anything.
You're dead, mister. The reason's right under your bed.
Hey, bud, the name's Maurice, and I'll catch you later. What goes on down there is every kid's fantasy. It's magic. Think of it, right? No teachers, no rules, no homework. And the best part is, you don't see any parents telling the kids what they can't eat. We're the reason kids get locked in their rooms. We're the reason brothers hate their sisters. We're also the reason that parents send their kids back to camp.
Little Monster, Fred Savage, Howie Mandel. They act up when the sun goes down.
We'll run through the plot a little bit. We'll kind of comment as we go, as we run through the plot. But before we get into that, you started to mention, before we had the trailer and everything else, you started to mention that you did not see this in the theater. When's the first time you remember seeing this movie?
I was young, for sure, but maybe 10, 11.
Okay.
But it was definitely not right when it came out, and it was definitely on TV.
Okay.
For what that's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, for me too. It would have been on TV somewhere, and we recorded it on VHS, and that's the copy that we had that we watched over and over and over again. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that this is something that I believe what I read was it did not get put into theaters much at all, and part of that was because the production company that was making it went bankrupt, got sold, all kinds of stuff that just it kind of makes you surprised that this movie ever got released. To begin with, there's just a lot of stuff going on that would have probably prevented it from happening, but eventually did get released. And I think they just kind of dumped it in a few theaters and said, we'll try to make some money on video. So that's kind of the story behind that. But yes, same thing for me. It was probably TV. We recorded it off of TV, and that's where we saw it. But I do remember, so kind of like my initial take on this movie is, I remember loving this movie as a kid. It was one of those that was the combination of, I was just the right age, that it was a combination of, hey, this thing is like goofy, and it's almost like a kid's version of Beetlejuice.
Never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like a kid's Beetlejuice, and it's weird, but it's also a little creepy. Like there's some stuff in there. There's some stuff in there that prevented me from showing it to at least my daughter.
I
think John
were
would
a
like
few
it.
moments where I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being as rough because I
Yeah.
saw it younger than
Right.
But we talk about it all the time, how times have changed, and man, have they.
Right. I mean, I don't sleep at night, but I wasn't traumatized by it.
Right.
So
It is the first time I heard the phrase over the shoulder boulder holder, though.
that might be true for me too.
I remember it taking me a little longer than it should have to figure out what in the hell he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. When you were a kid or an adult?
When I was a kid.
Oh, okay, good.
Fair question. Fair
Just
question.
checking. I'm just checking. I don't like to assume anything.
Yeah, like some of the one-liners, I'm not even, family-friendly podcast, I'm not even sure we can run through.
Right.
Man's best friend.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's, and I was kind of thinking about it, and that's why, and I know you commented on it as soon as I said it, as I was watching it this time, I really thought, wow, this is like somebody said, hey, they made this movie last year called Beetlejuice. Let's do that, but for kids. Like, that was crazy popular. Let's do that, but for kids, because there are times where if you watch Howie Mandel's performance in this movie, he's channeling Michael Keaton Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm.
Just in some of the manic ways that he's doing stuff, and just the way he talks. And, I almost equate like, after one of the first times that he kind of gets hit with the lights, and he starts to grow the horns pop out of his head.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning of the movie. And he's like, great, now I got horns. Nobody's going to recognize me. And he's doing that whole thing. Reminds me of the time when Beetlejuice like spins his head around. And he's like, don't you hate it when that happens? And like that whole thing. And I'm like, there are little moments here or there where I'm like, I really think that either the director or the writers or somebody said, hey, Howie, did you see Beetlejuice? Play it like that. Is kind of the vibe that I get watching this as an adult. I never would have picked that up as a kid, but just watching it this time, I was like, I really am.
As
I'm
you
getting
say it, I'm like, interesting.
Yeah,
I can see that.
So, I'm just gonna run kind of very quickly through the plot of the movie, and we can kind of comment as we go along. The one thing I will say about this is, my initial thoughts watching it again. I watched this again a couple of years ago when I discovered it was on one of the streaming services. And I was like, ooh, I watched that one as a kid. Let's give that one a try. And I watched it again a couple of years ago, and I was like, ooh, I liked that as a kid. And I liked that as a kid. But part of me too is like, you know what? Is it as bad as some people, like a lot of modern reviewers and, people who comment on it on the internet? I'm like, is it really as bad as what these people are making out? And my takeaway of this, before we really start to kind of dig into the movie, my takeaway is no, this movie is not as bad as people make it out to be. I would be curious if Pat's able to make it tonight. I would be curious to hear his take on it. I'm assuming that he's never seen it before until watching it as an adult. But my takeaway from this movie is it's not that bad. It's a kids movie, and inherently there's stuff about kids movies that adults are not going to like.
Right.
But kids are going to love it. You're not ready for this yet, but your kids are going to love it. So that's kind of my initial takeaway before we really kind of dig any further into this. Let me get yours too. Like, what's your, if you were to sum up your thoughts on this movie?
I can't
it now.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that in general. Like,
okay,
I definitely was not as excited by it as an adult.
Okay, that's fair. I felt the same way.
But I remember digging it as a child.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if the humor is just so, like, it doesn't rise to the level of, say, I mean, I'm trying to go for other sophomoric humor, but it doesn't rise to the level of American Pie or Wedding Crashers, where it's sophomoric humor that's really funny.
Right.
It just toes that line of, I think I might have hit on a way to describe it. So I was just calling something sophomoric humor. This is freshman humor.
Okay.
It's not quite funny enough to be what it was, but as a kid, you were entranced. You thought it was hysterical.
Right.
And the thought, let's be honest, the thought of the monster under the bed being a portal to another world was kind of fun for a minute,
Right.
But I can totally get your kids are going to love it mentality. Like, totally.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not just because we got to make a Back to the Future reference, which,
anytime you get to do that.
Always down for that.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, and you know what? And for what this is, as a prequel to Monsters, Inc., I think it's great. Because basically that's what this movie is too.
That's funny.
Have you ever seen, I don't know if you saw it. If you were looking.
So this is where I have to admit to being a little too old. I never saw Monsters, Inc.
What?
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the 30-something movie podcast. We'd like to thank Bo. This is his final episode with us. Bo, let's go look back some of our favorite Bo moments. My favorite scene in Rocky IV is the wax on, wax off scene.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so you've never seen Monsters, Inc.
Wait till I tell Donna I was fired from the podcast because I haven't seen Monsters, Inc.
Well. Thank you, Donna. That's the right response.
John approves of your response. Yeah, it just never.
So why are you a heartless, soulless monster?
It just never happened. Like
Okay.
My nieces probably saw it, but they were a little too young. It came out in that interim period where I wasn't seeing a lot of kids movies, really.
Yep. All right, I'll give that to you.
Yeah,
I'll let you have that.
Thanks.
I have the black hole years of 2007 and 2010 where I didn't see anything those years. So
right, it happens. It happens. Just don't tell Jeff; he might actually take offense.
No, he might come after you. So there's a video.
In my defense, it's been on my list to see. It's just never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a video, and I will jump ahead of that and say I got that vibe the last time I watched it, so I had not seen this YouTube video yet, but I was curious if anybody else had thought of that, because I was sure that I'm not the first person to think that this is a lot like Monsters, Inc. There is a video that I found a couple weeks ago, and it is called 24 Reasons Monsters, Inc. and Little Monsters Are the Same Movie.
Oh, that's too funny. And
it will go through, sometimes scene by scene, and say, well, here's this character in Little Monsters, and then whatever it was, 10 years later, here's this character in Monsters, Inc. In Little Monsters, you have this type of situation. In Monsters, Inc., you have this type of situation. Here, they pass through closets. Here, they pass through under the bed. Here, they do, and it's just, yeah. So it's really funny. When it's laid out that way, you're like, oh, yeah. All right.
Huh. I may have to check that out. That's a whole nother thing for me.
Yeah. But
so should I see the YouTube video before I watch Monsters, Inc. to get my brain going, or should I watch the movie first?
Watch Monsters, Inc. first.
Okay.
Because it will, if you watch a YouTube video, it'll spoil some stuff for Monsters, Inc.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah, no. Watch Monsters, Inc. first.
Gotcha.
But yeah. No, and I'm watching this video. I'm like, that was presented in the perfect way, because I have a feeling that if there had been if this movie had done better, then maybe somebody would have put up some kind of a stink and said, yo, Disney, that was our idea, and you just stole it and renamed it. But I don't think this one did well enough for anybody to go, hey, you stole our really bad idea that got made into a not so successful movie.
Interesting.
I guess, though, Disney for Monsters, Inc., I was reading up some other stuff, too. I guess they also got sued by an artist who some of his designs are very similar to some of the monster designs from Monsters, Inc. So I guess that guy had a little bit more of a position to be able to sue them or argue with them on stealing his ideas. But yeah, but no, it's remarkably, if you watch Monsters, Inc., you'll look at that and you'll be like, huh, this is a lot like Little Monsters.
All right. Well, I now have homework.
there you go. Monsters Inc. much better movie. I mean, I still like Little Monsters, but Monsters Inc. is a much better movie than this one.
Nice.
And John Goodman's in Monsters Inc. So.
Oh well, there you go. That's enough reason to see it right there.
Right. You got Billy Crystal and John Goodman there. You're good to go.
Pretty much.
All right. So in this movie, we'll run through this real quick. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but in this movie, we get introduced to Fred Savage. His name is Brian in this movie. His family have moved to a new town, and he is kind of lamenting in his opening narration or monologue. He is kind of lamenting that he's moved to a new town. He's got to make new friends, and it's obviously very difficult. As we get on into the movie, we see that he has a tendency to like to stay up late at night, watch TV. I don't know anybody who would do anything like that.
Never.
Anybody that would like sneak into the living room, which is far away from everybody else's bedroom, turn on the TV and watch either like late night horror movies or I don't know, infomercials or whatever was on at the time. I will say and maybe that's why I connected a lot with this movie, because growing up, I did that. Like I would sneak in and watch TV late at night. We also moved a lot. So the fact that it's a kid who's moved to a new place, has to make new friends, I probably connected with that as a kid quite a bit. So that may be why I enjoy this movie more than somebody else might.
You identified with a young Fred Savage?
Correct. So, if Pat hears this, he's going to feel bad now. He's like, oh man, I was going to say all kinds of bad stuff. And now John says this is like the story of his life. So I'm not going to say any of it because then I'm like, killing John's childhood. And Pat, you can say whatever you want.
You assassin of joy.
That's right. Joy killer. So the only thing that I immediately stop identifying with is the PB and onion sandwich.
Yeah.
That was super gross.
You're the only one that eats PB and onion.
Now, I don't know. If you were to set in front of me a peanut butter and onion sandwich and the contents of Ronnie Coleman's lunch later in the movie, I might have to sit and think about that for a little bit.
That is fair. That is fair.
I might rather eat a cat food sandwich. I'm not drinking his apple juice, but I might rather eat a cat food sandwich than PB and onion.
I don't know. Yeah. The onion, I just don't see how the onion and the peanut butter go with each other. No. I just don't.
If you want a crunch, then you get crunchy peanut butter.
Yeah, or put some celery in it, kid. I mean, come on.
I just the onion flavor and the peanut butter flavor just don't seem like they would go together well. And I'm not a huge fan of raw onions anyway.
Right.
So,
but yeah, it just doesn't.
What I'd really hate to do is at some point in this podcast, if we had decided, hey, you know what, when we reach a movie where there is an item of food that's prominently featured, let's make it and eat it. And then we can comment on it on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, no.
Part of that could be fun. Like I wouldn't mind the armadillo cake from Magnolias, but I'm not eating a PB and onion sandwich.
No.
I mean, part of me in the back of my mind is like, yeah, but you would try it just to say you did. That's fair. That's fair enough. I did try the zombie Skittles. My sister did buy the kid the zombie Skittles the other day. Have you heard of the zombie Skittles?
No.
Oh, have you heard about this? Have you seen this? So the zombie Skittles are normal looking Skittles. However, some of them are normal flavors. Some of them are kind of like the nasty flavors that you get like with the jelly beans with the Jelly Belly.
Yeah.
The Harry Potter ones where they're like ass and puke and, wet dog and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what this is. But they are mixed in with regular Skittles and you don't know until you bite into it what flavor you've got.
Oh, see, I don't mess with my candy.
Yeah. But, so that was kind of a fun game we did play the other night where we each took a handful and like one by one we tried to go through, and I was at my first 4 that I had totally fine. And then the 5th one I had, I don't know. I could not identify the flavor, but it was something like licorice and sweaty hamburger.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely horrible.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And it was the black licorice. It wasn't even like good licorice.
Oh.
So I don't know what flavor it was supposed to be. I don't know that I'm eating any more of those, but yeah.
Wow.
No, thank you. All right. But if Zombie Skittles wants to be a sponsor for the show, then we will absolutely.
Well, yeah, we'll do whatever we have to do. Don't get us wrong. I mean, we can be bought. There's no.
Right. Skippy and onions. If you want to do, you want to sponsor us, then.
Yeah, I mean, we're not proud or anything. I didn't say that.
No,
I gave that opinion, if I gave that impression, I feel.
No, we will shill just about anything if it would get us a little bit of a extra podcast revenue there. So, choosy podcasters, choose Jif and onions.
Ooh, well done.
There we go. See, I can work this. We can.
All while napping on a Casper mattress.
Oh, hey. Now, my Casper mattress that I ordered is outstanding. It's just the quality of it, and it came in one package, and it was easy to. Anyway.
And the glow lights. Have you tried the glow lights?
I have not.
You gotta try the glow lights.
Yeah. The Warby Parker. Have you tried those?
I have not, but a friend of mine has. She swears by them every day.
Really? Well, this is a family-friendly podcast, so we're going to try not to swear by them. But hey-o. Anyway, back to the movie. We have enough corporate sponsorship now that we're all independently wealthy, and we quit our day jobs and do this all the time. So we do get something that's a reoccurring thing in this movie. Mom and Dad are arguing a lot. So
yeah, things are not all happy.
There's trouble in River City, and you kind of get that this is building throughout the movie, and you kind of put that together with all of a sudden the younger brother is screaming that there's a monster in his room. And so we've kind of got this thing of the younger brother is scared of the monster. The parents are arguing. Fred Savage's character, Brian, he's having trouble making friends. He's come to a new place. He just doesn't like this whole idea. And this is kind of the theme of the movie that's going to be running from here. It's kind of, you got the B plot of the parents trying to do what they can. It seems like they bought this house because they were going to fix it up together. But then the dad, and I will say this with, full confidence that I'm not going to offend anybody here. The dad's kind of a scumbag.
Yeah, he kind of is. This
is where I think if Pat was here, this is where I think Pat would have had a lot of problems. Is the way that the dad talks to everybody. Like the dad is, to help their marriage, they bought this house that they were going to work on together, and yet he's sitting there eating chips and trying to get the game on TV.
Right.
Like, dude, put the chips down, put the game on the radio, help fix the house up. It's really not that difficult.
Yeah, it definitely has that. We didn't actually talk about this before we did it. Feel,
Right.
Like,
yeah, and I get that vibe. As I was watching it, I was thinking parts of the movie. I was like, wow, Pat's not going to like that. Yeah, Pat's really not going to like that because Pat doesn't like it when kids are mistreated in a movie.
Right.
And there's a lot of that in this movie.
Nor should he.
Nor should he. And there were just, especially when you get like the little montages of after they've gone out on their first night, when he meets Maurice and they kind of go out on their first night of causing trouble in other people's houses, you kind of get that montage of the parents yelling at the kids. And that part in particular, I was like, Pat's not going to like that. Now I get it. I get why they did that in the movie, because this is a kids movie. And if they're really catering to kids,
right,
they're trying to get the kids on their side by saying, yeah, kids, you know what? Us who are making this movie, we get it. Parents are really, really bad.
Like parents don't understand.
Parents don't get it. Right? They're just going to yell at you. The teachers are just going to yell at you.
They're all going to laugh at you.
Yeah. Oh God, that would be. Yeah. But yeah, that's. You get the sense as this movie goes on, he kind of gets into a fight with the bully at school. The principal pulls him off, and immediately, just because he's the new kid, he's the one that gets the punishment. Like, really? Are you that bad of a principal that you didn't realize that Ronnie Coleman is probably? I mean, just look at him. Just look at Ronnie.
There is a little of that. You're like, okay. I mean, right. I get that we're playing the stereotype here, but come on.
Do you need 80s school bully tattooed on his forehead for you to figure out that he's the bully? I mean, it is a bit of a sloping forehead, so that may explain, this is why he looks the part, but yeah.
But, it's a kid's movie. So.
It is a kid's movie. So the principal has to be unfair. It's like, you're new here, so it looks like you've got some rules to learn. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, we get kind of that stuff, and we get Basil Exposition, played by Kirsten, who explains that she's got a science project, and she's studying whether or not, using these lights and everything else, studying whether or not these cacti can grow in the dark and all that. And then this is the part that I remember as a kid, where he took all the Polaroid pictures and turned them into a flip book.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that as a kid, and I remember watching him do that, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, I feel like we might have had a Polaroid camera somewhere in the house. And I remember seeing that in the movie and thinking, wait a minute, you mean I can take Polaroid pictures and I can turn them into a flip book? That's flipping awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that scene, I love that scene in the movie. And I want to go out and do that right away. I don't know if I ever did, but just for some reason that stuck with me as a kid. That's really cool. Then we get to the point where he switches rooms with his little brother, because his brother's complaining about monsters, switches rooms, and he kind of realizes that he sees that there is some evidence of a monster. So he takes apart his bike, which got run over by his dad anyway, and takes apart his bike and starts to set this trap.
Because of the monsters.
Because of the monsters, and sets a trap using Doritos. So we've moved from Reese's Pieces to Doritos, which, by the way, if I think that the fulfillment of my life would be to be either a movie monster or a movie alien.
Definitely has to be alien.
Just so I can have people leave me Reese's Pieces and Doritos in a small trail on the floor for me to follow.
Sure.
I want to be an 80s movie monster or alien, because I'm going to get all the things I love.
I can understand that sentiment. Yeah.
I did see, when I went to C2E2, the big comic book show in Chicago, and I don't think it was this year, but it was last year, somebody had dressed up as Maurice.
Oh, wow.
They had done a full-on costume. It was this lady. She had dressed up I took a picture of her. She was dressed up in the full-on Maurice costume, the makeup. I mean, it was awesome. And she had an old, I don't know if she made it herself or had found it somewhere. She had an old bag of Doritos that looked exactly like the Doritos bag from this movie. Like the late 80s Dorito bag. I mean, everything was spot on. When we put up this episode, I'll post that picture up on Twitter. But yeah, it was great. It was a great costume.
That's dedication there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think she was a little bit surprised because, you see the people in costume, and sometimes you got to kind of yell out to them if they'll allow you to take a picture. And I remember yelling at her. I was like, "Hey, Maurice!" And she turned around, and she's like, "Oh, you know the costume?" And I said, "Yes, I know the costume." And so I took a picture, and yeah.
That's fun. That's good to know that there's still representing the old school at those things.
Oh, yeah.
One of these years I'm actually going to go. I talk about it, but I never actually do it.
Yeah. It's fun. It's really fun. Especially if you can swing it. Now, I tend to take the day off and go on Friday. Like, I go the entire weekend. I tend to take the day off work and I go on Friday. Or a couple of years I've gone for work, because they also have education panels that you can go to. So as part of the presentations, because there's a conference that kind of goes along as well on the Friday day. And they've got education and publishers and all kinds of other stuff. So there's been a couple times where I've gone in my capacity as a teacher. I still go in costume, even though I'm there as a teacher. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, you let us know if you ever want to go. Sharon's mom is always up for anybody else that'll wear a Star Trek costume with her.
Hey, you don't have to ask me twice.
There we go. So he kind of catches Maurice, and then he almost kind of melts in the sunlight. So we get the sense that this is what's going to happen to these monsters, is they don't do so well in the sunlight. They full on Dracula it, and they melt into their clothes. And then Maurice comes back the next night, and he kind of pulls Brian into the monster world. And you just see kind of the causing of mischief and everything else that goes on in the monsters world. And then they start to hop around to other people's houses. And that's where, and I thought this part in the movie was cool too. And obviously this was before Monsters, Inc. came out. And in Monsters, Inc., which you haven't seen yet, you get the idea that these monsters are able to pass from their world into other people's rooms around the world using closets and using closet doors. So this, I just thought was a cool idea. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. So they, in this
closet is a portal.
Right.
Very Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe-y.
Or poltergeisty.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe, you know what? Oh, I get it now. See, that was completely misunderstood. Poltergeist was not a horror movie. It was a prequel to Monsters, Inc.
There you go.
They just were trying to come through to get their energy because of the energy crisis in the monster world. That's all they were doing. Oh man, that puts a completely different spin on Poltergeist. Forget the whole Indian burial ground thing. It's not right. Okay. I'm going to go rewatch.
Burial ground.
We're going to rewatch Poltergeist now.
All right, I'm in.
So they end up in Ronnie Coleman's house, and of course they think it's hilarious. So they, he goes in his room and he sees that Ronnie Coleman is like holding his little teddy bear as he's sleeping, and they go into the kitchen, they get into the refrigerator, and obviously they perform their deeds that they perform on his lunch, in which Maurice drinks down his apple juice and then refills it. We'll leave it at that. And then they replace the tuna fish in his sandwich with cat food, and they put everything back, and then they go from there. And then they see him the next day, and they're watching him or Brian is watching him as he is eating his lunch, and he ends up throwing up the tuna fish sandwich and the urine juice all over the principal, which is outstanding. Not for the principal, but
no, but hysterical, nonetheless.
So that part's great. And that's kind of like you get the revenge on the bully. And that's kind of a classic 80s movie thing, especially a kids movie thing, is to get that revenge on the bully. So then what we kind of learn after this part is that as he's going back to the monster world a few times, we learn that it's getting easier for him to go to the monster world. So that's a little foreshadowing of what might be happening. We also get the idea that he needs to return by dawn. If he doesn't return by dawn, he will permanently be a monster. He will become a monster. He will be part of the monster world, and he will never be able to permanently go back to the human world. So we get that little tidbit of information there. Then, as we're going forward in this, they end up at Kirsten's house in one of their little trips to cause trouble, and they end up eating her homework, or Maurice's hand.
I was going to say Maurice's dog hand.
Mm-hmm. Which that was a little creepy as a kid.
Yeah, and this time I just thought it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way he pet it, it was, I don't know, it was kind of...
Yeah. Well,
awkward is the wrong word, but just weird.
Yeah. Well, especially for me, like I was scared of dogs as a kid. So that scene in particular was like, no, thank you. It's, yeah. The younger brother kind of finds out that Brian is gone at one point. We get introduced to Snick, finally, the character of Snick, that he's kind of a lackey for Boy. We don't know who Boy is yet. We just know that he lives at the top of a very tall staircase with the Wizard of Oz.
He's obviously very important.
Very important. Anybody with a very important job has a very large staircase. We get introduced to Monster Ball. So they're playing kind of a form of baseball. Yeah, so we kind of get the idea that the monsters want Brian to stay there. They want him to become one of them. You kind of get hints that Boy would like Brian to stay there because he'd like to have a companion to play with. And so then what they find out is they ultimately kidnap the younger brother. They kidnap Eric and take him into the monster world so that Brian will come back. And the idea is that they're going to try to trade Eric for Brian. Brian brings his friends with him, and we get kind of to the final monster showdown at the end here. And they do that. They end up with these light suits that they've somehow magically created very, very quickly. And they hit Boy with these light suits when he comes out. He's kind of attacking them with a bunch of toys and toy tanks and things like that. And they hit him with the light suit, and his face gets torn off. And this is one of the parts as a kid that I remember being completely freaked out by this. Up to this point, this is a kid's movie with some kind of creepy monsters in it. But when the person's face gets torn off,
yeah,
that's when we're hitting a whole new level. And that's probably the part that terrified me as a kid. And that part in particular is why I didn't show it to Nora, to my daughter.
Yeah, I can understand that. It was a lot. Even, as a kid, I remember not liking it. As an adult, I
guess they hit Kid with enough light, and then they end up hitting Snick with a flamethrower, all this other stuff.
Boy, not Kid, right?
I'm sorry. What did I say? I said kid, right? Boy, right. I
was like, wait a minute. I didn't miss a character again, did I?
No, I was thinking of House Party, Kid and Play.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking of. I was just a year ahead of time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And so they hit Kid and Play with a flamethrower, and the house party's over.
Baseball flamethrower, maybe.
Baseball flamethrower, yeah. And, as you do in Major League Baseball, I think that's one of those National League, American League differences.
Yes. Is
the flamethrower, the baseball flamethrower. And then they kind of realize that they need to get out. Like, it's time to go. So let's get out of Dodge. And they start running towards the bed portal. and it kind of seals itself over as they get there. And they realize, oops, sun's come up, we're stuck. So you get a couple seconds of, oh man, we're stuck here forever. Sorry, I guess you're monsters now. And then we get the realization that, well, wait a minute, it's only sun up here. Like, if we start running west, then we can beat the sun before it gets to wherever. So you get this whole kind of follow-up scene where they're running and they try, I forget all the different places they try. I don't know if they try Chicago, they try, Ohio, they try.
Yeah, they try 3 or 4 places. I forget which, essentially one in each time zone from what I recall.
Right. They try Phoenix, they try like all these other places. And then ultimately they try California. And I remember that being kind of the funny thing about this movie is they make it out in California. They finally make it out. And then they have to call their parents and explain, hey, Mom, I found Eric. Where are you guys at? Malibu. Wait, Malibu. I think they live in Pennsylvania. Is it Pennsylvania or Massachusetts? I forget. But they say something like Malibu, Pennsylvania? No, Malibu, California. The heck are you doing in California? I remember as a kid thinking that was hilarious. Like, that's funny that you could like run from where you are in the monster world and get to California, and it was just a matter of minutes for you to get there. So I remember just loving that part. So that's kind of the movie in a nutshell. So yeah. I think when we originally texted each other about this one, we said, or at least I said, or you might have said too, love this one as a kid, and it just kind of it doesn't shine quite the same way it did. I don't think it's a horrible movie. Like, I probably will watch this one again sometime. Maybe watch it with my kids when they're a little bit older. I think John would enjoy it, but it's definitely not. You kind of got to be a kid, or you have to have seen this as a kid, I think, to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that I didn't know about was the fact that the studio was kind of going under at one point. I watched an interview in the late 90s, might have been the late 90s, with Fred Savage and Howie Mandel, when Howie Mandel had his talk show.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an interview where they're talking about it, and they said, Howie Mandel said, do you remember the first thing we worked on together? And they said, yeah, it was Little Monsters. And he said, yeah, do you remember that? And he said, yeah, what I remember is we were filming a bunch of scenes in a warehouse, and I think that they were using the warehouse because it was cheap, because it had been condemned and it was unsafe.
Oh, nice.
And I think Fred Savage said, yeah, I remember like the director and the camera crew and everybody else, they were wearing like surgical masks. And I remember we kept asking them like, well, should we have masks too? And they're like, no, you're fine. Just shoot the scene.
Nice.
Like, okay.
Little lawsuit mesothelioma situation.
Right. You kind of get the sense in reading about this story that just everything fell apart. Like, not that this movie necessarily would have been some great movie had it come out, with a functioning studio behind it and a production company and all that. But I think that's why you didn't see this in theaters. I think that's why it just kind of almost went straight to VHS. And I just think that's why it didn't do as well as it probably could have. Because if this had been released in movie theaters more widely than it was, I get the feeling it would have at least done a little bit better. Yeah, I mean,
it certainly had some appeal. Fred Savage wasn't exactly...
this was around Wonder Years time. So
right, so he wasn't an unknown. He was kind of a hot commodity.
He'd been in... It was the same year The Wizard came out.
Right.
So if you had The Wizard, you had The Princess Bride a couple of years before, you have Wonder Years. It would have come out the weekend before school started. Mm-hmm. So it was like your last weekend to go see a movie before school starts. So it seems like there would have been a lot of things here that would have made it a successful movie. But it was one of those that just kind of, I don't know, it fizzled out when it got into the theaters. Some of it reminds me a little bit of, do you remember when we watched several years ago, we did The Explorers for the podcast?
Yes.
We talked about how that one kind of like fell apart at the end.
Yep.
Because it switched, like a production company went bankrupt and they had to switch this and finish this at the last minute, and they changed up the ending and they changed up the soundtrack and they did all this. I think this movie is kind of the same way.
Yeah, that's actually a really good context for it.
It seems like bits and pieces are rushed, but
it's like the end of Holy Grail.
Right. Or the opening credits. We apologize for the inconvenience. The people who did the first credits have been sacked. The credits have now been finished at the last minute and great personal expense.
Great personal expense, exactly.
Or whatever. What was it? At extreme expense, or whatever the words are. But yeah.
Yeah. No, it's.
So yeah, if I go back and I think of this movie as like, this is a kid's Beetlejuice, then it's a fine movie. Like, it's a kid's movie. It was trying to be, they were trying to take something that was already successful for adults, and they tried to adapt it for kids.
Oh.
And if I look at this movie that way, then I'm like, hey, it's fine. Like, this is not a bad movie. It's not a horrible movie. It's a kid's movie, and just let it be a kid's movie.
So you're a parent. I'm not. So I'm going to ask you. So we used to talk early on when we started this podcast. We did a lot of does this movie hold up conversations.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about this movie as a kid's movie, not an adult movie, which is why we as adults had a little trouble with it this time around. The question is, does it hold up for kids of today? And it's a little, and the language and innuendo is a little tough for kids of certain ages. So I just don't know. I don't know if the target audience is still right.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
You know, I think that this movie holds up as a kid's movie for 10 to 12-year-old.
Okay.
Like, I don't think this is it. Now, I probably saw this younger than 10. But I don't know that this movie holds up for younger kids. And I think just some of the stuff that is in this movie, you know, that where it kind of toes that line a little bit of, well, we've got some adult humor and we've got some adult language. And if you're a 12-year-old, that's the part that's the most funny. Like, right. That joke. I don't fully get that joke, but I kind of know what they're implying.
Right, and you're looking back at your parents going, they're letting me watch it.
Yeah, Mom and Dad, do they look awkwardly at each other? Because I think I know what that means, but I'm not 100% sure. Dad, what are boulders?
Right.
On that note, how do you feel about Little Monsters?
Little Monsters. I
want to see, because I made some assumptions earlier about what you might say about this movie.
Right.
So I'm just curious to see if any of my assumptions were correct. So proceed, sir.
Okay. So Little Monsters, it fell flat for me. It just kind of felt like it was almost like what was that movie? The Explorers. Was that the one where they built the spaceship and the one kid figured out how to? It felt like, to me, it felt like the Explorers. The only thing was, I love sci-fi, so I'm like, yeah, Explorers is great. The whole horror thing, this wasn't horror. I mean, that's to even call it that is laughable. So this, you know, Monsters, not quite my thing. That's where I think this one just fell a little bit flat for me. And in watching it, I was kind of like, okay, I get it. I mean, that's cool. They're showing a different world. I mean, I was kind of reminded almost of like Monsters Incorporated, which, you know, I can't say that Monsters Incorporated influenced this because obviously this came first. So I was reminded of Monsters Inc. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. You know, was it Fred Savage? You know, he did a good job. I liked his character and how his character kind of, you know, figured out, and I got through the story, and I like that he stood up for his brother. Like when the bully goes on the bus, I like that he stood up for his brother. I thought for a second he was going to like sell his brother out, just kind of let him take the heat for throwing the lunch out the window. But I'm just like, okay, that's cool. The kid's cool. And I mean, that was fun. The whole ending where they had to race across to where it was still nighttime or whatever. And they're like, Mom, Dad, we're in Maui or Malibu or Hawaii or wherever. I thought that was a fun gag. So, you know, I'm going through all the stuff that I liked. I guess it just fell flat, and honestly, the Maurice character kind of fell a little bit flat for me. And I know I didn't recognize him right away. It was Howie Mandel that played Maurice. Yeah. Okay. See, maybe I got to see more things with him. I didn't even pick up on that at first. I just felt that the character of Maurice fell. It just fell a little bit flat. It almost seemed like a group of junior high kids kind of doing like a fan appreciation flick of Beetlejuice. I mean, and that sounds really harsh, and I don't mean it to be, and I can't act my way out of a paper bag, but it was like I kept like seeing like, okay, well, Maurice is sort of like the Beetlejuice in here, but I'm just not laughing like I do to Beetlejuice. So I'll be honest with you, that's kind of the first thing that I bumped at, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that it was an acting thing. I don't want to say that it was I don't want to make. I'm trying to not be angry. I'm trying not to take out my awesome, spectacular, peachy keen day on this movie. But it was
you can if you want to.
No, I don't.
You've already we'll put it this way. You've already reaffirmed everything we've talked about for the last hour.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That is
literally every point.
Literally every point.
From Explorers to Beetlejuice, I think we all agree the weirdness in this movie plays out.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that actually is kind of cool. I'm just saying that we all kind of have the same opinion with things. Well, then I'm just kind of rambling, and I'm kind of.
I think you summed coming in when you did. I think you've summarized the conversation quite well.
Okay.
I was about to tell John, well, shoot, John, just throw out the last 45 minutes. Just take his little bit and we're out.
I don't know about that. Wait.
Perfect.
Did you hit record this time, John?
Oh yeah, hit record. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I don't, you know what? I don't know. Yeah, it was. So anyways, yeah, I think I just summarized it. It was just, that fell flat. It was kind of like, I'm not laughing at Maurice. It seems like it's forced. It seems like junior high kids kind of working and trying to make this funny. The other thing I really bumped on is the parents just seem like jerks. I mean, I know they were trying to show, okay, well, the parents are out of touch and the parents don't get it. And yeah, the parents just seemed like jerks. And then there was the one, it was like the montage where, when Fred Savage first went into the Upside Down or wherever, that place was, the Upside Down, but not as cool. And then they show that montage of all the kids like going, I don't know how that happened. And then the parents just yelling at them. I was just like, I was listening to the parents' voices and I'm like, dude, that's just, wow.
Not cool, bro.
Yeah. That was really, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so glad that not more than 20 minutes ago I said, Bo, you know what part I think Pat's going to have a really big problem with? So yes, we are simpatico on this. You have pretty much summed up everything we've talked about.
Okay, so I have met expectations on this podcast.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, and as I was watching it, it's like, look, I can light a kid up. I mean, I can light a kid up better than most. I mean, my own kids, the kids that I mean, there's times that it's like, okay, I know they deserve it. There's times that like, I hope they deserve it. There's times that I'm like, dude, I came out way too much on that, like any human being can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, so those were my things. And I was kind of left, sort of like, you know what, here it is. It's sort of like in The Naked Gun, when Frank Drebin says, it's like drinking Drano. Sure, it fills you up, but it leaves you feeling hollow inside. That's kind of how I felt watching the movie. It filled me up, but it felt hollow.
It felt a little hollow inside.
Yeah. Right. So.
Hey, that works.
But other than that, I thought it was great. Okay. Wonderful.
Other than all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got just a little bit of time left for 5 questions. So let's do, and I think our 5 questions may be kind of quick tonight. So let's jump on into 5 questions.
I want to play a game. The artist teach travel on 5 questions. What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, were they psychos or?
They look like psychos? Is that what they look like? They were vampires. Psychos do not explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give a how crazy they are.
Please, mister, this is insane. Boy, the next word that comes out of your mouth better be some brilliant, because it's definitely getting chiseled on your tombstone.
Number 1, did you ever think that there was a monster in your room as a kid? And my son was looking over my shoulder. My son was looking over my shoulder as I was kind of writing these up or reading them this afternoon. And he looked at question number 1. He goes, oh, man, all the time. Like I thought there was like a murderer in my closet and he was going to like kill me when I fall asleep. And I was like, no, buddy, just no. He's not going to kill you when you fall asleep. He waits about an hour or 2.
Good
like, wait, what? I said, no, it's okay. It's all right.
What you talk about, Dad?
Yeah.
Do you care to say that again?
Yeah. General, would you care to step outside? So Pat, you said in your closet you thought there was a monster?
Bo said that.
Oh, Bo said that. Okay.
I'm convinced. I'm telling you.
Okay.
It was a spooky old. We lived in a spooky old house for the first 8 years of my life, and man, there were closets. It was drafty, dude. stuff would make noises, things that just no.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's the joy of living in an old house, especially when the temperature changes. Because then you get that, like, the beams in the house will start to like pop and creak and no. Or if you live in an old house, whereas the temperature changes, things pop and creak and make noises, and you also have two really, really big trees in your front yard that go over the roof of your house, so that in the midst of all those pops and creaks and everything else, you can also have acorns falling on your roof that sound like footsteps.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah, that's not childhood. That's the one I live in right now.
I was going to say, that sounds like your house now. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it's me as an adult sometimes has an overactive imagination. So, yeah.
Dude, as you're saying that, I just caught movement out of the periphery of my vision in the darkened part of the room. Yeah. And it was like something was moving and floating up. And I like literally am off the couch in like fight or flight right now. Mm-hmm. And it was like a couple of balloons that got caught out in front of the heat vent. And all of a sudden we're talking like that. Oh man. Wow. That'll wake you up in the morning and put hair on your chest right there, boys.
Balloons at night. I happen to be on the alarm call list for work. And at midnight, for a week solid a year ago, I would get a call and I would check the security cameras, check all the doors, nothing. Took me a week to discover that someone had gotten balloons for their birthday. And when the HVAC would kick on at midnight, it would blow the balloons around just enough.
Yeah.
Trigger all those. Yep.
Trigger the motion sensor.
I was meeting with my very good friend and, colleague and coach and all that, our art teacher at school, and we were just meeting about some cross country stuff, and all of a sudden there was one of the storage doors started like slamming, like literally like someone was on the door like slamming, and I looked back and I'm like, is someone like maybe the custodian was coming in, and it has happened about 3 or 4 times. She goes, oh, that's just the art room ghost, and I was like, the art room ghost, and all of a sudden the door starts going, and then you start hearing knock, and girl, slam, and it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh. She goes, yeah, that just happens. And I'm just like, dang, that. She goes, yep, I just tell the kids it's the art room ghost. And I'm like, I don't know what's in there or what's happening or what, but man, that just happened the other day. I'm like, geez, Louise, that was another exciting thing, man.
And this reminds no, it doesn't just happen. Something has to cause that.
No, that doesn't just happen. That reminds me of a little while back. I was rewatching Raw and Delirious with Eddie Murphy.
Very nice.
And he's got the whole thing where he's like, I just don't understand you white people and your ghosts. You white people, like, you get a ghost in the house and then you're just like, oh, well, isn't that interesting? Let's stick around. And he's like, no, if I walked into a house and I was like, wow, this house is really pretty. And, it's a staircase and it's beautiful. And get out. I'm sorry, we can't live here, baby. We got to go. We got to get out of here right now. No, that's if something weird and unexplainable happens, then you better believe I'm going to be booking it to California and I'm going to pass Dennis on the way there because I'm getting out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going anywhere near any of that.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I had a very overactive imagination as a child, and I did not sleep well as a child. I would have pretty constant nightmares. So if there was anywhere that there was a dark corner in my room or under my bed or in my closet or whatever, I was completely convinced that there was something there. So I was pretty consistently terrified at night because I was always convinced that there was something. And we had, in one of the houses I lived in as a kid, we had this ridiculously long hallway from where the kids' rooms were. You had kind of the front door, the kids' rooms were close to the front door, and then you had this really long hallway that was it was solid wall on both sides that ran all the way to the other side of the house to get to the master bedroom and the living room. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It seemed like a weird design. Now, it was a great design when we wanted to run laps in the house because the house was kind of circular in that way. You could kind of run through the entire house like it's a track. But that hallway would I'd run down that hallway. That hallway would give me nightmares because I would dream about it sometimes where I would have those dreams where, you're running and either like the hallway gets longer as you run or whatever it is. And I just was terrified of that hallway in my house, but that was the main hallway in the house. So it's not like you could avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
No, that would be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Question number 2. Did you ever play a prank on someone?
None that I can recall.
Okay.
With the exception of, dropping a little nugget of a fib to get someone going on something and then saying, "Oh, gotcha."
Right.
Yeah. I'm with Bo on that one. I remember telling a guy something and he fell for it. Kind of just real harmless stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We when I was in school in England, we had it was an all boys school, and we had this kind of wooded area outside of the school grounds, and we had convinced the younger kids, some of the older kids had convinced the younger kids that there was a masked gunman that was living in the woods.
Oh, geez.
And we kept that going. Like, we even made, and the teachers got so angry. It was like a very primitive version of Photoshop. And somehow on the school computers, we printed up all these wanted posters, and we'd put them up around the school. And oh man, the teachers were not happy at all. They had to send home letters to the parents. Like, there is no criminal hiding in the woods outside of our school. Please ignore it. It's a bunch of kids. And for a while, they couldn't figure out who it was. So we kind of kept that going for several weeks. And then finally they figured out who it was, and we got in trouble.
That's impressive. That's dedication to the cause, for sure.
I'm nothing if not elaborate. We'll put it that way.
Exactly.
Number 3, favorite movie monster. Now, this could be a scary monster, could be silly monster, could be lovable, could be whatever you want it to be. Could be the movie Monsters Ball with Billy Bob Thornton and Halle Berry, if you wanted to. But no, what's a favorite movie monster? I pulled that one out of somewhere. I don't know where that reference came from.
I think I might have a list. You know what I'm saying? I think I was looking. I do. I mean, I'm thinking okay, Monsters Incorporated, the movie, right? Like Mike Sullivan, Sully. I mean, those guys are great. The Abominable Snowman. How do you pass
Snow
that
cone?
guy up?
Snow cone?
Welcome to the Himalaya. I mean, that was when that hit. That was like, okay, Pixar, you know what you're about. That's outstanding.
Don't give too much away, because we established earlier in this episode that Bo almost got fired from the podcast when he revealed he hasn't seen Monsters Inc.
You haven't seen Monsters Inc.?
Nope.
Oh, seriously, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the warning, man. I wouldn't want to spoil it. Monsters Inc. is just really well done, and it's almost like a sleeper. Not really, but it's almost like a sleeper. Like Toy Story, Wall-E, they get more of the glitz and glam, but Monsters Inc. is just a really good one. And
when the first basic premise of your movie is that it's kind of a commentary on the California energy crisis.
Yeah.
And you're watching it as an adult, you're like, huh, well, that's timely.
Yeah. No, it's just really good. Yeah, Bo, that would be that would be awesome. And I guess the only other guy, how about the Balrog from what's it called? Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
good one. I did not come up with that one. Well done.
Well, and just the imagery when that thing started moving. Maybe there were other movies that would make things move like that, but it just looked so cool. And when it would open up its jaw and just bellow, and it was just, but that thing was cool. I guess those would be the monsters that start. I mean, as you guys start talking, I'm probably going to think of another.
Yeah, Bo, what have you got?
Monster, but in 3 years, we get to talk about Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, which is an outstandingly good movie that I think should be on my top 10 list. But that's like my next countdown. Like Batman, like now it's Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. But in there was the demon that was always tormenting him. That thing was pretty cool. That thing was really cool. Yeah, man, there's so many good monsters out there, I guess. So I'm going to keep going. I'll keep listing. So someone else jump in.
So I had a list also, because I was sort of trying to come up with things, and I came up with so many, and some were funny, some aren't. But like that classic movie monster, I did come up with Medusa from Jason and the Argonauts, claymation with the snakes behind her head, and there was a couple good ones from that movie, but the Medusa has always been one that sort of stands out to me.
That one, kind of along the same lines, the Jason and the Argonauts, when you had the Hydra and you had the skeleton army, and that one, love that one. That was probably one of my favorites growing up.
Oh, you know what? Medusa's not Jason and the Argonauts.
No, that's
Medusa's Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
Yep, I said corrected.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Medusa's fantastic. If you're ever thinking about funny monsters, you always have to think of the Deadites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because, it's hard for them to be scary.
I know.
I will swallow your soul. Get some.
And then there's
this is my
favorite
boomstick.
You loved me once. Can you love me again? Honey, you got real ugly.
Oh, I can't.
That's everybody's favorite. We can't forget everybody's favorite monster pet, the Rancor.
Oh, yep.
That was on my list. That one didn't make the final cut on my list, but that one was on my list.
Yeah, the Rancor's pretty awesome.
Rancor, Deadites, and Medusa. Those are the ones that kind of.
Oh, well played, Bo. You're like playing the deep cuts, man. That's awesome.
Too with the Balrog. That was awesome.
I don't know. There's just so many good monsters out there. Maybe, you know what? Maybe for a 300th, maybe this topic would be a little bit small, but I don't know. Could you imagine an entire episode about the greatest monsters in the movie?
Yeah.
That is worth considering. I like it.
Oh, man. All right, John, what do you got?
All right. So, yeah, I had a hard time narrowing, as usual. I had a hard time narrowing stuff down. As a kid, I loved monsters in movies as a kid. It just had such a hard time coming up with what would be the favorites. Like, I think of the, I forget the name of the creature, but the two-headed dragon monster in Willow. I think of like all the classic movie monsters. I love the original Wolfman movie, the Lon Chaney stuff, Dracula, Frankenstein, all that good stuff. Now, the ones, as I kind of narrowed it down, I did have like the Rancor was on my list before I started to narrow stuff down a little bit. And I tried to think of, all right, well, what are some of the ones that even like from childhood on through to adulthood? Because a couple others I used to watch the movie Krull religiously and just love the monsters in that movie, especially the one kind of towards the end. The Beast, I don't know if it had another name other than the Beast, but just loved the monsters in that movie. And as I kind of got down to it, I think I narrowed it down to about 3. And my 3 are kind of 2 of them are childhood. One is I got as I was a little bit older, and my number 1 might be kind of the favorite of all time. But the ones from childhood, Godzilla.
Okay.
Always a fan of the Godzilla movies. Anytime a Godzilla movie would come on, my dad loved them. We'd sit and watch them. I haven't seen the newest Godzilla movies. I did grab was it Destroy All Monsters or King of the Monsters was the one that came out like last year. I grabbed that from the library, so whenever I get free time, I'm gonna watch that one. But yeah, Godzilla was always a favorite as a kid. Loved Godzilla. The other one, I'm gonna go same movie as the Rancor, but I'm gonna go with the Sarlacc. And I'm gonna go pre-beak Sarlacc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because as a kid,
OG Sarlacc.
The OG Sarlacc, right? I'm gonna go with that one because as a kid, we used to, how normal kids would play the floor is lava. Right.
Yeah.
And you'd like take the cushions off your couch and you'd like put them around the room and you'd have places you could hop around so the floor was lava. Yeah. We played the couches are skip ray blast boats and the floor is the Sarlacc.
That's well played.
And one of us would end up either on the floor, and while somebody was climbing on the couch, we'd reach up an arm and pretend it was a tentacle and try to pull you down.
That's awesome.
So that was the fun times we had in our living room.
That's outstanding.
As I traumatized my brother and sister.
So,
but my number 1 of all time, I think I got to go with this one for number 1 of all time because I was obsessed with this as, probably, let's say from 5th grade. Let's say kind of from 5th grade on. I got to go with the Xenomorph from the Alien movies.
Oh, of course.
Because from 5th grade on, that thing was just, I was a huge Alien fan. For a stretch of time in middle school, I would have said, if you would have given me a choice, you could have said, do you want to watch an Alien movie? Do you want to watch a Star Wars movie? Do you want to watch a Star Trek movie? I would have picked Alien. I would have picked Alien nonstop. I loved everything about Alien when I was in middle school. And even still, that's one of my favorites. I'll go check out the comic books. I'll rewatch the movies. That's still one of my favorites. So I think I gotta, for favorite monster of all time, I gotta go the Xenomorph.
Nice. Nice.
All right. So very, very quickly, what makes a monster scary for you? Like, what is it about a monster? When you think of a monster that's scary, like what would be one, maybe two, but one quality that you're like, that's the kind of monster that terrifies me? And mine, I already know right off the bat. Mine is if it's unstoppable and invisible.
Sure.
I want to be able to see it, and I want to be able to fight back. So the ones that are most terrifying to me are the ones that are like, no, there's no hope.
Yeah, I'm kind of
no way of fighting back. You're going to die. You're not going to see it coming, and you're going to die.
Right? Yeah, like I always picture, and it's funny. I relate this to gameplay more than anything, but like the Borg in Star Trek, the original Borg, when they were just mindless killing machines, and they had more power than anything you'd ever seen, and you were done if they showed up.
Isn't that when Q snapped him over like three? That sent him to the Delta Quadrant. You know,
they were just scary then.
Yeah, that was like maybe I'll watch that episode tonight. Didn't they like remove part of the hull or something? I mean, it was yeah.
And they've done a really good job of, total sidebar, but they've done a really good job of taking that scary Borg and putting it into the Star Trek Online game that they have.
Okay. Cool.
They are a frightening enemy to deal with.
Okay.
So mindless things like that. So I sort of equate it to something like the Dementors too, you know, something that just has no goal but to kill and has no equal.
Right. I guess what would be the scariest for me? I might take a little bit of John's and then a little bit of Bo's and kind of combine them. I think what would be scary is if somehow the monster was coming after my family and I just couldn't stop it. I think that would be scary. I think that would be it, because like I'm thinking like, okay, are zombies really that scary? Well, no.
Depends on the zombie though. Like if it's the slow walking kind that even I can outrun, okay, fine, no big deal. Right. If it's the kind that you can definitely kill them by blowing their head off with a shotgun, all right. But when you got those fast walking guys, that's scary stuff.
No, if you're talking like the 28 Days Later zombies or the World War Z zombies, or nope. That's when I just find a nice little stick of dynamite and turn myself into a birthday cupcake.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my, please make a t-shirt of that.
Well, I've been trying to come up with ways to have podcast merchandise, so I guess we can have a picture of me with a stick of dynamite in my mouth saying, I'm a birthday cupcake.
30-something movie 30-something movie podcast, and then whatever the heck that line was, just put that across the back.
There we go. Sorry,
Pat, I totally derailed your list thinking about walking zombies.
Well, Pat's scared of balloons, so I don't know that his list needs to go further than that.
Man, my list, I got balloons coming at me, and then John had that. I mean, that was like Shakespearean level poetry that you just recited for us right now. But I don't know. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't think of like I mean, all of it's scary. You know, the xenomorph is scary. I mean, like Mike Wazowski is not scary, but I mean, you know, so there's always gonna be like scary stuff, and I guess I don't want stuff like going in through my face and busting out from my chest. I guess it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Hello,
all right, well,
baby. I don't know my time gab on.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He had the special.
He had the special. That's what I had. Waitress, change my order.
All right, well, let's take this into a slightly different direction, because Fred Savage was in this. Actually, both of the Kevin Arnolds were in this. The dad in Little Monsters was the narrator for The Wonder Years. So you had both Kevin Arnolds in this movie together. And so question number 5 is, what is your favorite, if you had to narrow it down to one, what is your favorite episode of The Wonder Years?
Oh, boy. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I don't remember The Wonder Years.
Okay.
I remember watching it. I remember enjoying it. I remember all those things. I can't tell you like any episode. There was the one where Kevin went to work, and like
that one's actually on my list.
Oh, I'm going to let you talk about it, because that's only
hold on. Is it
I remember.
Kevin went to his dad's work?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the only one I remember. So I'll let you talk about that. But I mean, Yeah, I'm sure it was a good one if it's on your list. But yeah, that's kind of all I remember.
Okay. All right. Bo, do you remember enough of them to have narrowed it down to an episode or a couple of episodes?
Yeah, honestly, the finale and the pilot for me always stuck out.
Okay.
As they tend to on shows, because the pilot, they have the most time to plan because they're trying to sell it, and then the finale of a show like that is kind of like it's either a thank you note to the fans or a love story to the characters, depending on which angle they decide to take. And I think I liked I remember liking the way they wrapped everything up in the finale, and I remember thinking that for a pilot, they did a really good job of setting the table.
I don't know that I remember the finale.
It's a lot of monologue of Kevin talking, like recapping what happened, and then they show it. But
okay.
I think gosh, it might even be 10 years in the future. I can't remember.
Okay.
But he basically goes through and recaps what happened.
Yeah.
The father dies unexpectedly at one point as he's recapping what happened, but it was just done. I remember thinking, oh, okay. So many shows don't wrap it up nice.
Right.
They did a good job of doing that.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
But other than that, I'm kind of with Pat that I can't place an episode of The Wonder Years in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the beginning and the end, I can say, yes, that's something I can.
Okay. I remembered moments of some different episodes, and so I picked out and I didn't know the episode titles. I had to go look them up. But I picked some moments of different episodes. I'm like, those are the ones that if I think of The Wonder Years, that's what I remember about it. I don't know that I could tell you everything that happened, like every subplot of that episode and from beginning to end what happened, but those were very memorable parts for me. So the one of them I had was the one you mentioned, Pat. The episode was called My Father's Office.
Okay.
And I want to say it was one of the first episodes. It might have been like the third or fourth episode of season 1. And it was he goes to work with his dad. And, and up to this point, his dad as being the real gruff, very strict, the old school dad, up to this point in the show. And that's how you see him at home. And then he goes to work and he sees a completely different side of his father.
Yes.
Like he gets this, he realizes, his dad is the boss at home, but he's not the boss at work. And so he sees, I think the turning point is he sees his dad get yelled at by his boss. And he's like, wow, maybe that's why dad comes home kind of grumpy sometimes, because he's got to deal with this. He's not in charge here.
And there was that really powerful scene where the dad would always come home and undo his tie and walk through the kitchen. And then the day Kevin did it, like Kevin followed him right through and stomps in. And I remember being very touched by that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that part. Yeah. I remember that part too, where he does the same thing. There was that one. And then the other two, I was having trouble kind of narrowing it down. The other two that I really liked one was called The Treehouse.
Okay.
And it's where he and his dad are building a treehouse together. So, it's kind of that typical, you're still a young kid and your dad's going to help you build a tree house because that's what kids do. And that's really fun. And then you can have like this tree house as your clubhouse because you're a kid. And then as they're building this tree house, they start to realize that from up in the tree, they have a view of their next door neighbor's bedroom window.
Uh-huh.
And they are sometimes able to see the nice looking next door neighbor undressing in the bedroom window. And I think in the episode they each so this episode is also kind of a little bit of a metaphor for having the talk, the birds and the bees, if you will. And I don't think that they ever actually talk about it, but there's that moment in it when they kind of like look at each other and they realize that they've both been looking over at the neighbor's window. And it's kind of like this awkward, well, maybe we don't need to finish this treehouse.
Yeah. We're just going to let that one go. We're just going to stand pat.
And I think at the end of the episode, he says something like, and we never finished the treehouse. I don't think that they ever finished it. And I just remember that episode and remember kind of that awkward moment of, we're both looking at the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's, I don't think I need a treehouse anymore.
Mm-hmm. We're just going to call it right there.
Right. And then the other one that I picked out was, and there's a couple of episodes I feel like that were kind of like this, but the one that I think, if I'm remembering it right, was called Summer Song. And it was one of the ones where he goes off to camp for the summer, and it's kind of like, you know, he has this kind of summer fling with a girl. I think he's still either in 8th grade or maybe a freshman in high school at that point in the show. And it's just he knows that this is very temporary, and he knows that at the end of the summer he's going to leave. They're never going to see each other again. And it just was a very sweet little story about, you know, just having this summer love affair with another girl as he was off at summer camp or wherever it was, or his family was off vacationing somewhere. And he knew that he was only going to be there for a little bit of time, and they leave each other at the end of the summer, and he comes back to Winnie and everybody else. And, you know, he just knew that was going to be a temporary thing. But I always remember that episode.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. Those are our 5 questions, and that's going to do it for Little Monsters. So, as I said, we are in October now. So if you come on back next time we're going to be talking about a movie that I would hazard a guess and say that the majority of our listeners, including the majority of our hosts, have never seen this movie before. It is an Australian movie, which I originally added it to the list as a horror movie for October because that's what it was classified as.
Sure.
Now that I've watched it, I have come to realize it's not really a horror movie. It has some aspects to it that are horror, but it's not really so much a horror movie, and there's a bit of a story behind that. So if you want to find out more about Celia, or as it's called in the United States, Celia, Child of Terror, we'll be doing that one next week. So come on back next week for that one. And then following that, we've got Pet Sematary. We'll probably try to do an episode on the Joker sometime, the new Joker movie. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Leviathan, Shocker, and maybe we might do an episode on Zombieland Double Tap if we get around to that one, but we'll see. I probably would rather do an episode on the Joker than the Zombieland one because I definitely know I'm going to go see the Joker when it comes out this weekend. So, that being what it is, come check us out at 30podcast.com. Interact with us on Twitter. Call the voicemail line if you want to just drop in and say, hey, I love Little Monsters. I hate Little Monsters. My favorite episode of The Wonder Years is blah, blah, blah. That was not an actual episode title, but, you know, maybe it was. I don't remember all of them. So, it could have been. Absolutely. So come on back next week. We'll be taking a look at the Australian... I don't even know what to call it. Australian movie Celia. It's not horror, but it's Australian something. Celia is what we're going to be looking at next time. But thank you, Bo, and thank you, Pat, for being here.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right, everybody, be excellent to each other and go watch some scary movies. We'll see you back here next time.